Mr. Ephraim Wagstaff, his wife, and Pipe by Charles Lamb. About the middle of Shoemaker Row, near to Broadway, Blackfriars, there resided for many years a substantial hardware man named Ephraim Wagstaff. He was short in stature, tolerably well-favored in countenance, and singularly neat and clean in his attire. Everybody in the neighborhood looked upon him as a warm old man, and when he died, the property he left behind him did not belie the preconceived opinion. It was all personal, amounted to about £19,000, and, as he was childless, it went to distant relations, with the exception of a few £100 bequeathed to public charities. The family of Ephraim Wagstaff, both on the male and female sides, was respectable, though not opulent. His maternal grand PG 433 father, he used to say, formed part of the executive government in the reign of George I, whom he served as petty constable in one of the manufacturing districts during a long period. The love of office seems not to have been hereditary in the family, or perhaps the opportunities of gratifying it did not continue, for with that single exception, none of his ancestors could boast of official honors. The origin of the name is doubtful. On a first view, it seems evidently the conjunction of two names brought together by marriage or fortune. In the Tatler, we read about the staff in a variety of combinations, under one of which the popular author of that work chose to designate himself, and thereby conferred immortality on the name of Bickerstaff. Our friend Ephraim was no great wit, but he loved a joke, particularly if he made it himself, and he used to say, whenever he heard anyone endeavoring to account for his name, that he believed it originated in the marriage of a Miss Staff to some wag, who lived near her, and who, willing to show his gallantry, and at the same time his knowledge of French customs, adopted the fashion of that sprightly people by adding her family name to his own. The conjecture is at least probable, and so we must leave it. At the age of 52, it pleased heaven to deprive Mr. Wagstaff of his beloved spouse Barbara. The bereavement formed an era in his history. Mrs. Wagstaff was an active, strong woman, about 10 years older than himself, and one sure to be missed in any circle wherein she had once moved. She was indeed no cipher. Her person was tall and bony, her face, in hue something between brown and red, had the appearance of having been scorched. Altogether her qualities were truly commanding. She loved her own way exceedingly, was continually on the alert to have it, and in truth generally succeeded. Yet such was her love of justice that she has been heard to aver repeatedly that she spoke the word never emphatically, opposed her husband, but when he was decidedly in the wrong. Of these occasions, it must also be mentioned, she generously took upon herself the trouble and responsibility of being the sole judge. There was one point, however, on which it would seem that Mr. Wagstaff had contrived to please himself exclusively, although how he had managed to resist so effectually the remonstrances and opposition which, from the structure of his wife's mind, he must necessarily have been doomed to encounter, must ever remain a secret. The fact was this: Ephraim had a peculiarly strong attachment to a pipe, his affection for his amiable partner scarcely exceeding that which he entertained for that lively emblem of so many sage contrivances and florid speeches, ending like it in smoke. In the times of his former wives, for twice before had he been yoked in matrimony, he had indulged himself with it unmolested. Not so with Mrs. Wagstaff the third. Pipes and smoking she held in unmitigated abhorrence, but having, by whatever means, been ob PG 434 obliged to submit to their introduction, she wisely avoided all direct attempts to abate what she called among her friends the nuisance. And like a skillful general, who has failed of securing victory, she had recourse to such stratagems as might render it as little productive as possible to the enemy. Ephraim, aware how matters stood, neglected no precaution to guard against his wife's maneuvers, meeting, of course, with various success. Many a time did her ingenuity contrive an accident, by which his pipe and peace of mind were at once demolished, and although there never could be any difficulty in replacing the former by simply sending out for that purpose, yet he has confessed that when he contemplated the possibility of offering too strong an excitement to the shrill tones of his beloved's voice, the only pipe she willingly tolerated, he waived that proceeding and submitted to the sacrifice as much the lesser evil. At length Mrs. Wagstaff was taken ill, an inflammation on her lungs was found to be her malady, and that crisis appeared to be fast approaching when the foreboding soon proved correct, and everything considered, perhaps it ought not to excite much surprise that when Ephraim heard from the physician that there was little or no chance of her recovery, he betrayed no symptoms of excessive emotion, but mumbling something unintelligibly, in which the doctor thought he caught the sound of the words Christian duty of resignation. He quietly filled an additional pipe that evening. The next day Mrs. Wagstaff expired, and in due time her interment took place in the churchyard of St. Anne, Blackfriars, everything connected therewith being conducted with the decorum becoming so melancholy an event, and which might be expected from a man of Mr. Wagstaff's gravity and experience. The funeral was a walking one from the near vicinity to the ground, and but for an untimely slanting shower of rain, no particular inconvenience would have been felt by those who were assembled on that occasion. That casualty, however, caused them to be thoroughly drenched, and in reference to their appearance, it was feelingly observed by some of the bystanders that they had seldom seen so many tears on the faces of mourners. To be continued, perhaps. Nemo. pg 435